Good evening, everyone. Welcome to closing comments here for March 2nd. Let's jump right into these charts and see we kicked off the new week. Volatile day here across all these markets. A little bit of volatility sprinkled in throughout today. April live cattle here to start us off. We did see a big gap lower here in this cattle market today, both feeders and fats opening with a big gap down. Light April live contract opening at 229 with a brief poke down there to 228.5. As discussed in our weekend market watch video, we were expecting to see some support come in with this 228 level being the next stop. Bulls were able to keep this thing propped up off that opening range today, seeing a nice pushback off of that 228 level. Good response there from them. Anything down here below 228 could really open up the selling pressure there, so good response by them. This market, this is just one good day, big gap down, and bought that back up in the face of some bad news here. At the moment, though, we are still trading in bearish territory down here below our major moving averages. Price still trading below that 20-day low at 234.5 as well. Anywhere between 34.5 up to 37, we expect to see some resistance kind of come into this market. Bulls need to finish back up here above 237 before we can start thinking about any chance for them again. Still be defensive here while this market sorts out this recent volatility. We still expect to see some resistance up here. Just a little bit of relief rally here as this market came in with that big gap down. Probably had a pretty heavy volume of short covering today, especially after we couldn't make any more progress off of that 232 level. Just kept on contracting here before we saw that short covering rally late here in the last half hour of the day, pushing this thing back up there to 33.65. Still expecting to see that resistance, though. This doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet. This is just one big recovery here today. We should see some resistance start to come in here. In the meantime, be defensive here. Still be a little bit cautious. We need to see this market kind of settle down before we can really commit to any sort of directional moves. We should just see some volatility here in the days to come. Bears are still in control here as long as we're trading below that 20-day low. So be defensive here. Look for those sellers to try and step in and offer more selling pressure here in the days to come. Same story in the feeder market today. April feeders opening up down there right around 346. This market did push down there to 345.65 at the low, kind of finding some support down here near this yearly opening range lows and that 200-day moving average. Nice little bounce back here today. Same story. This market trying to provide some resistance up there at 351. Just couldn't quite do it here, and we did see those shorts start to cover a little bit here late in the day, pushing this thing back up there to 53.70. Once again, like that live cattle market, though, we are still trading below that 50-day average and our 20-day lows. Expect to see some resistance come in here in the mid-350s. We're not out of the woods here yet. Still expecting to see some volatility in the days to come here for this cattle market. We need to see a recovery back above 356 and some sustained upside from there before we can start thinking about any upside. In the meantime, we should just see a little bit of resistance here in the days to come and see if those bears can try and make another run lower on this cattle market. Continue to be defensive here and let this thing kind of sort out some of this recent volatility, and there will be smoother seas to sail here once some of this dust kind of settles over the next week or so. May corn futures on the board today. We did see a gap open here higher on the Sunday night open for this corn market up there above 450, rejecting all the way back down here to 444. Still above these prior range lows, so range rules still apply here. Looking for these bulls to remain active down here in between 444 and 450. Should see them try and provide some support here. If we do see this thing start to slip back down below this key level that we've been trading around here since back in early to mid-November, we should see this thing start to slip if we do see some offers down here below 444 and a close below that. But in the meantime, we still expect to see now this range from last fall come back into play here between 444 and 464. Look for the bulls to try and be active down here and try and make another push back up to at least the middle part of this range. And crude oil prices is the exciting one of the day. Following the news events of the weekend, we did see that big Sunday night gap open, which was immediately sold off. News hitting the wire usually results in sell news here in this oil market, kind of marking the high here on the day, pushing all the way back down briefly below 70 before finishing up there just right around 71. So far here in the after hours, we are back up to about 72.66, pushing back up here, but we should just kind of be at Um, just be seeing some volatility continue here in this market. We'll have to wait and see if there's any sort of escalation or continuation of what's going on over there in Iran. In the meantime, this market is sure to be a little bit volatile here. In the meantime, and while we kind of sort the situation out, once we have a little bit more information, we should see this thing kind of start settling back to earth a little bit. But in the meantime, this crude oil market's going to be watching that news pretty carefully, and we should see a continued volatility here. And equity markets making a nice bounce off of these range lows. Once again, bad news being bought up here, as we have seen both the S&P and the Nasdaq rally here today from those range lows. The Dow, which has been our leader recently, did see a gap down, but finding support here in this yearly opening range, driving back up here, finishing the day right there around 49,000. At the moment, we are seeing a little bit of weakness here in the evening session, but each of these indexes seeing a nice push out of these range lows, or a nice little probe of these lows, and see a nice little recovery there on the Dow. In the meantime, nothing really getting this market to break. Last time we had a dust up with Iran was back here on the 22nd, 23rd of June, and that was the last time we traded below 6,000. So we're having a pretty good recovery here today so far in the face of that bad news. Look for this thing to try and push back up here through the top end of this range. A lot of the big pieces of the puzzle here are still seeing some pretty messy charts, so this isn't going to be a nice, easy climb out of here. But we should just continue to see some choppy action here. If the news events weren't enough to break this market and we continue to see good support down here in these range lows, we should see this choppy range-bound action continue here in the near term until we can get breaks of these range lows and closes down here below this opening range low on the Dow. Not really expecting much downside here, just looking for more choppy action in these indexes. Still not a great time to just sit here and get chopped up. Wait for smoother seas to start getting involved and put money to work. There are still some areas of this market that are performing well, so look for the relative strength areas. But in the meantime, I'd avoid these indexes until we can get a little bit cleaner picture and a little bit better traction here to set us up for a longer term move. In the meantime, we should see this each of these indexes continue to chop around in the area. Thank you everyone for tuning in here tonight. We'll catch you guys tomorrow night for closing comments.